Mr. Cuellar, and if we could keep it, and then Mr. Simpson. Mr. Cuellar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also want to thank you for your service. You're a class act. You're a fair man, and again, you have a good heart. Thank you. I also want to thank my friend John Carter, who served on this committee as the chairman for many years. Mr. Carter, thank you again for all the work that you've done on Homeland. Appreciate it. Chairman Yoder, again, like I said, you went down to the border, and the first report I got was, you get it. And certainly I want to appreciate your bipartisanship. You've been working with our ranking member, Ms. Roybal Allard, in a very bipartisan way. In fact, if you look at a lot of the amendments, the manager's amendment and the actual bill itself, there's been a lot of bipartisan work, so we appreciate it. And ranking member also, thank you so much. I also just want to mention one thing about the balanced approach, except for the wall. Of course, we'll talk about that later. But the balanced approach that you brought, because usually when people look at the border, they look at the men and women in green, which is Border Patrol, in between ports of entry, and we know that's important, and we got to work on it. But you found a way to make sure we add more CBP officers, which are the men and women in blue, added more CBP officers on that. You also, we had money there for procurement of technology, for the non-intrusive technology at the ports of entry, $182 million, $41 million to hire 140 K-9 teams. And again, adding those CBP officers, adding the K-9 teams, and of course the non-intrusive, that is extremely important to us. Finally, one thing that I do want to say, because I know this is always controversial when we deal with detentions, if you look at the language that John Carter and the ranking women, we've all added for years, you built on it. And the language here for detention centers is probably one of the toughest ones we've had. So I want to say thank you for adding that language and also increasing by $26 million. I think it's a total of $213 million for alternative detention, which is a more cost-effective way to monitor individuals, the ones that are not dangerous. So again, I want to thank you and the ranking member for the balanced approach, and thank you for what you've done in this bill.
Thank you, Mr. Cuellar. Gentleman from Idaho, Mr. Simpson.